Today we have a really special visitor. Came all the way from Houston by way of Las Vegas and New York.
Well, I guess from a family history standpoint, our great grandfather and grandfather were into fruit farms, typically mangoes and guavas. So my memories really from our childhood days in the summer were, going to our grandparents, and they would have these mangoes in ice and water in these huge tubs, like you have for children, to play in the water, that kind of a thing. And people would spend afternoons and evenings and eat to your heart's content. And so those tastes.
So you mentioned putting the mangoes into ice water, and could you explain why they did that?
Well, I wouldn't know the science behind it, but what I used to hear was that they used to say that mango is latently warm, so and since you're having it in a warm weather, hot weather when it ripens, and so how do you sort of reduce the effects of that warmth on your body, and you can consume more. And what I heard was that by actually putting them in water and soaking them for whatever couple of hours, and that would take that sort of latent heat out of the fruit, and you could kind of consume a lot more and enjoy it and not be worried about that, I'm heating my system up by eating too much of a fruit.
So I heard it a little bit, but generally foods are classified as either warm foods or cold foods, and that doesn't mean a cold food is a popsicle and a warm food is a cup of coffee, but there's certain characteristics of that food that tend to heat up your body or cool it down. And could you give us some examples of other hot foods and other cold, or I should say warm foods, and other cool foods?
Like I said, I'm not an expert at this, but for mangoes I definitely heard that they were a warm they had a warm effect on your body for whatever reasons. Guavas, nope, they're neutrals pretty much. Falsa, the berry that was a favorite of mine also. Now that's a coolant completely. So in the summer months, it's people crave for it and have it in the peak of summer in the sun, just like we have lemonade here to cool ourselves. And it's not cooling in terms of you have whatever juice it is in a cup full of ice, and you drink it and now you feel cool. It's the properties of the fruit and what it does in your body chemistry, in your system. It cools your system down. So like people get hit by heat waves and stuff like that, and that time it's nice to have cold yogurt and things like that. Like yogurt's supposed to be a coolant. It's the same thing with falsa. Mangoes, on the other hand, that was, I guess, the old grandpa's tale, perhaps. That's how it's done, and that was what our kind of elder generations did for years, and they obviously knew what they were doing about it because they were in that business, and we were just kids then.
So what types of mangoes did your grandparents grow?
Okay, so in their farms, their sort of prize-winning variety cultivar was called Langra. It's Langra, and then they did another which is called Anvaratol, which is a little fatter mango, but it still has a very slim seed. And typically the preferred mango by most people in that subcontinent is one that has very little hair to it, whether it's from the skin side or from the seed side. So these varieties were more pulp and a lot juicier and
very sweet.
very sweet as well. Or it's a taste preference as well. Some people like them to have a tinge of um, let's say limey taste to it, and they prefer to have it when it's maybe a day earlier, then it's fully ripe, that kind of a thing. But it's a personal preference.
Yeah, I think that somebody just mentioned to me that Anbar Atoll,
Unbarotol, yeah.
as one of the top 4 mangoes in where?
In
I'm
both
trying
in
to think.
yeah.
I can't remember exactly which country he was from, but
Yeah.
it was the Chansa and Langara and Anbar Atoll and
Sindri.
Sindri. Yeah,
Yeah.
those were the 4.
Yeah, these are kind of the top varieties consistently because of the way they've been propagated and continued grafting in that subcontinent, and of course the taste preference of the people there. And there are so many other varieties there that we would lose count. Some of the varieties are actually available here in the mango place. Neelam, for example, is a variety that I've tasted in the south of India, and there's so many others. I mean, I don't know, maybe more than 100 varieties in India, perhaps.
Probably tens of thousands.
Yeah, probably. But these are the more famous ones, and then of course, the branded names like Alfonso and so on. They have their own unique characteristics and tastes, and of course, the season. So if you want to spread them out in terms of if you enjoy this fruit and you want to have it, you don't want to have all of the same time.
The same day.
At the same time, at the same day. So you want to be able to stagger it, and the different varieties, they tend to offer you that opportunity to, have 2 weeks apart, 3 weeks apart, and you get a bigger season.
So also, one of the characteristics I've heard about for the Indian type mangoes is you have to pick it green off the tree and ripen it off the tree. Is that for all of the varieties or just some of them?
Yeah, well, I know for sure that Langra, the variety we had, and Anvarotol, they want to take it earlier off the tree when it's not ripe and it's, say, green in color, and then you put it in, say, like a pantry or somewhere where you don't have light, and typically what was done was they would wrap it up in a newspaper, so you don't get too much bumping or damage on it, and a few days you open one up and see, and you can kind of tell by the I wouldn't say squeezing it, by just holding it up, and the fragrance that comes out of it, whether it's ripe, and then experience comes in based on how you like to eat it. For me, if it's fully ripe in, say, 5 days, I would rather have it at 4. Some people will wait till 5 days.
So you definitely ripen things in the dark, but do some people ripen them in the sun also? Or?
Okay, yeah. So commercially, if you go into the markets in India, they will have the pickings from the groves. That will be by the truckloads, and then these small sellers in the market have their 4-wheel carts, and they'll buy the quantity they can afford, and they just lay it on the cart and out in the sun, and they just ripen, and people often want to pick, I want this piece, that piece, that piece, and that's where you sort of bargain and haggle. Say the price is 50 for whatever, pound or kilogram or whatever, and you go in and say, oh, I want to select my own, and he's going to say, well, if you want to select your own, it's not going to be 50, it's going to be 60 or 65, because you're going to take my best ones. So that's kind of how it works. And of course, when the best is gone, then the price drops, because then it's like, okay, affordability, and some people will wait and they say, I want it cheaper.
So do you know, if you are a seller and have your cart and you put your mangoes in the sun, do they generally try and sell everything that same day.
Um,
I mean, I don't know how fast
Yeah.
it ripens. Like, if by the end of the day, is it not going to be green enough to put out in the sun the next day?
Yeah, I think if you do give them time to ripe, depending on how early you pick them up, it could be a couple of days till they're fully ripe. So the time is available to these small street sellers. I think it's more the affordability in terms of how much they can buy and afford before and generate revenue and sell it. So I think being poor and small time sellers, they tend to buy what they can sell by the day, maybe 10-20% left over, and then they go replenish their inventory early in the morning the next day, because when the pickings are done, they're delivered into these wholesale sort of markets, typically at break of dawn or something.